But, Congressman, reconciliation has been used many times before by the Republicans.
Absolutely. Listen, there are differences in every instance when reconciliation was used. This is something, health care, that is going to alter a significant portion of our economy. And if they do this, the public does not like this bill. And so it's that somehow the Democratic majority just won't listen to the public.
Can I just David, I need to respond.
And don't allow us to
let me respond to what he's saying here.
Quick comment.
Because the Republicans have repeatedly said that they agree with 80% of what's in our bill. And at the end of the day, what we need to do is sit down and negotiate over the differences on the 20%. The Republicans right now are focused all about regaining power. They don't have any interest in us accomplishing comprehensive health care reform. That's been evident. There isn't anyone that is saying, come on, let's just work this out. What they're saying is start over. Start over, the American people understand, means do nothing.
David,
because if we are successful...
Final point, hold on. Final point before I move to the politics. Congressman, I want this very narrow point. What would be in a revised bill that you could vote for? What out of all of the president's ideas could you support now?
Well, we could start with implementing real medical malpractice reform. We could start by creating universal access programs at the state level to allow those who are being denied coverage by the insurance company right now the ability to access insurance. We could put in place the real ability for people to purchase insurance across state lines for real competition that would help
those
bring
elements,
down
for instance,
costs.
those three elements, you could vote for it under those circumstances?
If you listen to my discussion and my comments with the president at the Blair House, when he asked that, I said, look, it is the construct of the bill. It goes back to the level of mandate from Washington. And the president and I had an exchange about why is it that we need the Secretary of Health and Human Services here in Washington telling people what benefits.
I want to just hold on. I just want to move. I want to move beyond some of the fine points of this to go a little bit larger in terms of the politics. Charlie Cook talked about what all this means politically this year, and this is what he said in a report, as Politico reported it this week. I think choosing to take a Captain Ahab-like approach to health care, I'm going to push for this even in the worst downturn since the Great Depression, is roughly comparable to Bush's decision to go to war. It basically destroyed the first year of a presidency. Does the president come through this, however it turns out, tarnished in some way? Is he hurt as he goes into the midterm race?
No, I think to some extent the whole debate politically about reconciliation is a little bit of a red herring, because if this bill passes and it proves to be popular with the American people, it will be judged on its merits. If it passes and proves to be unpopular, it will also be judged on those merits. People will soon forget how it was passed. That's what happened with welfare reform. It took all of us a little while to dig out our books and remember that welfare reform was actually passed through reconciliation. People don't remember the bickering beforehand. They will support or not support this bill on its merits. Now, the problem, I think, for the president is that this is gumming up all of the time he needs to be spending on other things. Business leaders are going to the White House and saying, we cannot make decisions about trying to hire people because we don't know what our costs are going to be. We don't know what our healthcare costs are going to be. We don't know what the energy plan is going to be. We don't know what the tax reform is going to be. So they are not making decisions. They are frozen because Washington is frozen, and he needs to get moving on these legislative issues.
The debate, of course, is how close does a president get to legislation like this? There's a reason why, with all respect, members of Congress often suffer in their popularity because sausage-making, lawmaking is not a popular thing in the public. Does he risk the tarnish of being too close to the process now that he's decided to get this close?
I think he takes credit for being able to get something very big and something significant done. Poll numbers change. Public opinion changes. What people are reacting to is a messy, confusing process. I think that a victory on health care will help the president. He staked his first year of the presidency on it. People can debate whether he should have done something else, but the fact of the matter is he's on the goal line, and now I think people want to see him get the ball in the end zone and pass his plan.
Ron, the effect on the election.
I agree with both of them. Look, I think that this really is a gut check moment for the Democrats. They have not won the debate to this point, and it is not unusual. Every other president who has tried to do this have found that it is very difficult in a prospective manner to convince the country that government can reform a system this complex, especially at a time when we have such distrust of government after the 2008 financial meltdown. And I think the choice before them is exactly right. As Caddy said, I don't think people are going to remember very long how this was done. If they do go ahead with this, they would have to do so in the belief that they can turn around those poll numbers and convince the country that this is worth doing. And ultimately, this has been, a top priority for every Democratic president since Truman. They are, as Mr. Morel says, on the goal line. And if they don't do it, I think it would be a striking admission that they do not believe that in the end they can win this argument about an issue at the core of the party's mission for many decades.
Let me move on. There was another question I wanted to ask you regarding Charlie Rangel, Congressman Rangel of New York, who was criticized by the Ethics Committee for a series of trips that he took down to the Caribbean. Should he retain his job?
Well, I think obviously when a member is found to have violated House ethics rules, it's a very serious thing. And there are a number of other investigations that are ongoing. And I think what Speaker Pelosi has said is that we need to look at the totality of those recommendations and wait till all the investigations are completed before a decision is rendered on that.
But you're concerned about the finding?
Obviously, any time a member is found to have violated House ethics rules, it's deeply concerning.
What's going to happen, Congressman?
Look, Nancy Pelosi said in the very beginning, this is going to be the most open, honest, and ethical Congress in history. And what we're seeing, she's breaking that promise every day. And I'm sure my colleague would join me in saying that the American people would say right away, Charlie Rangel should step aside from being chairman of the most major committee in Congress after having been found to be in violation of House rules. And as we know in press reports, this is only the tip of the iceberg. So, listen, I called for his stepping down before even this finding, and now I do think it's time.
Ron, does he make it, do you think?
This is the first shoe. I think that this is not enough by itself, but I think many Democrats are expecting that the further revelations on the ongoing investigation on his financial dealings may create irresistible pressure for him to step down.
I strongly support Charlie Rangel, and his future is up to the voters who elected him. He's had a long, great career in Congress, and I think there's always going to be a lot of back and forth about ethics investigations, not to sanction what he said, but his future should be up to the voters of his district.
Caddy, another interesting point, another political situation in New York. Governor Patterson saying he will not pursue his campaign for governor, striking because here you have the Obama administration who tried to get him to back out of this race months ago unsuccessfully, and now the scandal involving his administration and any potential interference with a domestic violence situation involving one of his aides has now come to the point where he's still in the job, still calls for him to resign outright.
Front-page paper calls for him to resign out from nearly all of the New York City papers included. I think it's a suggestion, isn't it, that the White House's bid earlier to try to get him to resign is an indication of the limitations of the White House's clout when it comes to Democrats all around the country. I mean, they've had this problem in elections across the country as well, in trying to support Democrats who didn't then get elected. It is something that makes the White House not look particularly powerful.
It's a measure of the kind of year it is right now for Democrats, that often the best headline for them this year is when somebody steps aside in the race. Bill Ritter, Chris Dodd, Patterson. I mean, that is a tough year when the good news is when somebody isn't running.
It was the White House who asked him to step aside, and then he had stepped aside.
Good. Final point.
The bottom line when it comes to ethics reform is that we got the Ethics Committee, Democrats got the Ethics Committee moving again. It's an effective process that was totally neutered under the Republicans, and now we have an Ethics Committee that is fully functioning and making sure that we take care of the ethics problems when they're there.
All right, we are going to leave it there. Thanks to all of you. Covered a lot of ground. We will talk more with Mark Morial about the National Urban League's Century of Service to American Communities. It's in our Meet the Press Take 2 Web Extra. It's up this afternoon. Plus, look for updates from me throughout the week. It's all on our website, mtp.msnbc.com. And we'll be right back.